Before you watch this beautiful story about overcoming expectations and finding real love, hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss these incredible moments when connection transcends everything we think we know about who people should be. This story will absolutely move your heart. Don't miss it. ***. Marcus Williams was sitting at the dinner table with his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, telling her about the blind date his best friend's wife had set up for him. "So your Aunt Lisa found someone for you to go out with?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with hope. "That's what she says," Marcus replied, not entirely convinced. "Though I'm not sure I'm ready to date again yet." Marcus had been a single father for 3 years since his wife died unexpectedly. He'd focused entirely on raising Emma, on being present, on creating a stable and loving home. He hadn't even thought about dating. The idea felt overwhelming. But his friend Jerome and Jerome's wife Lisa had been gently pushing Marcus to get back out there for months. They worried about him being alone. They thought he deserved to have a partner again. Finally, they'd convinced him to go on one blind date. Just one. To get out of the house, to talk to an adult, to see if there was any possibility of companionship in his future. "What's her name?" Emma asked. "Her name is Stephanie," Marcus said. "She works as a social worker." What Marcus didn't know was that when Lisa had heard the description, "She's a wonderful person, very kind, works helping people," she'd immediately thought of Stephanie. But she'd also prepared herself for Marcus's potential reaction. She knew that Marcus, like many people, had unconscious biases about what an ideal partner should look like. She knew that society had taught both Marcus and everyone else to value certain body types and appearances over others. And she knew that Stephanie was a plus-sized woman in a world that often made plus-sized women feel invisible and undesirable, especially in the dating world. But Lisa also knew something else. She'd seen Marcus and Stephanie in the same room before, at a community event. She'd watched them interact. She'd seen how Stephanie had asked thoughtful questions about Marcus's work. She'd seen how Marcus had laughed at Stephanie's jokes. She'd seen genuine connection. And she'd decided to be brave enough to set them up anyway, trusting that if they gave each other a chance, they might discover something real. What would happen on that blind date would prove that Lisa's instincts were correct, and would teach everyone involved something profound about attraction, worth, and what really matters in love. To understand why this moment was so significant, you need to know the real stories behind Marcus and Stephanie and what had led them to this blind date. Marcus Williams was 38 years old. He was an accomplished engineer, a devoted father, and a genuinely good man. He had a strong sense of responsibility. He was present in Emma's life. He attended her school events. He helped with homework. He cooked dinner. He was the kind of father that many children don't get to have. But Marcus had also absorbed the messages that society sends about attraction and desirability. He'd been taught that beauty followed a specific formula. He'd been taught that plus-sized women were less desirable, less worthy of pursuit, less likely to be valued as partners. These weren't conscious beliefs that Marcus would have articulated, but they were embedded in how he'd been raised, in the media he'd consumed, in the cultural messages he'd internalized over 38 years. Marcus's late wife, Jennifer, had been conventionally beautiful, thin, athletic, conventionally attractive. Their marriage had been good, though like all marriages, it had been complex. Jennifer had been loving and present. She'd been a wonderful mother. And when she died in a car accident, Marcus had been devastated not just by the loss of a partner, but by the loss of shared history, of the life they'd built together. For 3 years, Marcus had been entirely focused on Emma. He'd pushed aside any thoughts about dating. He'd assumed that he wouldn't be interested in anyone for a long time. Stephanie Mitchell was 36 years old. She was a social worker who specialized in helping families in crisis. She worked with people experiencing homelessness, domestic violence, poverty, and trauma. She was brilliant at her job. She was empathetic, intelligent, creative, and deeply committed to her work. But Stephanie had spent most of her adult life feeling invisible in the dating world. She'd watched men overlook her at parties, despite her intelligence and her kindness. She'd heard the statistics about how plus-sized women faced more challenges in dating. She'd internalized the message that her body made her less desirable, less worthy of love. At 36, Stephanie hadn't had a serious relationship in 5 years. She'd gone on dates with men who seemed to be settling for her, who appeared to be looking for someone better. She'd learned to protect her heart because it hurt to put herself out there and be treated like a consolation prize. But Stephanie had also learned something crucial in her work as a social worker. People were so much more complex and valuable than the narrow categories society tried to put them in. She'd learned that true connection came from seeing and valuing the whole person, not just appearance. She'd learned that the world's judgments about worth and desirability were often wrong. The setting asterisk a restaurant on a Friday night. Marcus arriving 5 minutes early, nervous and unsure about this whole blind date thing. Stephanie arriving on time, similarly nervous but trying to hide it. The conflict asterisk, there are expectations on both sides, some conscious, many unconscious. There are societal messages about who should be attracted to whom. There's the unspoken question. Will these two people who've been told to value certain things in partners be able to see past their conditioning to see each other as real people? The stakes asterisk, not just whether this blind date goes well, but whether two people can overcome internalized biases and actually connect. Whether real attraction can develop between people who don't fit society's narrow definition of ideal matches. Marcus arrived at the restaurant first. He was nervous. He'd spent 3 years without dating. He'd almost forgotten how to do this. When Stephanie arrived, Marcus's first instinct, the one trained by society, was disappointment. She wasn't conventionally thin. She was a plus-sized woman in a body that society told him he shouldn't be attracted to. But then Stephanie smiled at him, and something shifted. Her smile was genuine. Her eyes were warm. She looked genuinely pleased to meet him, not nervous or desperate or apologetic about her appearance. "Marcus," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Stephanie. Lisa really talked you up. I'm glad you were willing to do this." "Of course," Marcus said, shaking her hand. She wouldn't stop bugging me about it. They sat down, and there was that awkward first date moment. The searching for things to talk about, the nervous energy, the uncertainty about whether there's any connection. But then Stephanie asked Marcus about his work, and he started talking about engineering, about the projects he was working on, about the parts of his job that actually interested him. And Stephanie didn't just listen politely. She asked intelligent questions. She understood technical concepts. She engaged with what he was saying in a way that made the conversation feel alive. "I work with a lot of nonprofits," Stephanie said. "And I've always been fascinated by how engineering could solve some of the problems we deal with, housing, water systems, things like that. Tell me more about what you do." Marcus found himself talking more than he'd talked in years. Not performing or trying to impress, but actually engaging in real conversation about things he cared about. 2 hours passed like 20 minutes. When they realized the restaurant was starting to close, they were both surprised. "Would you want to get coffee sometime?" Marcus asked. "I mean, if you'd like to." Stephanie's smile widened. "I'd like that," she said. "I really would." As Marcus drove home that night, he felt confused. He'd expected to be unattracted to Stephanie based on her appearance. But somewhere during the conversation, something had changed. He'd stopped seeing her as a plus-sized woman and started seeing her as Stephanie, intelligent, kind, funny, interesting. His attraction to her hadn't been based on her body fitting society's narrow standards. It had developed from seeing her as a whole person, her intelligence, her humor, her values, her way of making him feel understood and valued. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Stephanie went on several dates. They went to coffee. They went to dinner. They went to a museum. They spent time together, and with each encounter, Marcus felt his attraction to Stephanie deepen. Not despite her body, but inclusive of it. He found himself actually attracted to her as a complete person. But something happened that almost derailed everything. Marcus had been telling Jerome and Lisa about the dates. He'd told them how much he liked Stephanie. And Lisa had been thrilled. Her instincts about these two had been right. But then, one day, Jerome said something that made Marcus pause. "Dude, I'm happy you're getting out," Jerome said. "But just make sure you're not settling, you know? There are other women out there. You have options." The implication was clear. Jerome thought Marcus might be settling for Stephanie because she was plus-sized. Marcus felt anger flare up inside him. But then he realized Jerome was reflecting back to him the biases that society had taught both of them. Jerome was suggesting that Marcus could do better than a plus-sized woman, not realizing how insulting and discriminatory that suggestion actually was. That night, Marcus had a conversation with Stephanie about it. "I want to tell you something," Marcus said. They were sitting on her couch. "My friend suggested that maybe I'm settling by dating you. And I need you to know that I'm not settling. I'm actually getting everything I want, someone intelligent, kind, funny, who I'm genuinely attracted to. Someone who makes me happy." Stephanie's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for saying that," she said. "Because honestly, I've always wondered if people were settling for me. If they saw past my body or if they were just compromising." "I'm not compromising," Marcus said firmly. "I'm choosing you. Completely and authentically choosing you." Over the next year, Marcus and Stephanie's relationship deepened. They became serious. Marcus introduced Stephanie to Emma, and they connected immediately. Stephanie's natural warmth and ability to connect with people making her a wonderful addition to their lives. Emma loved Stephanie. She loved that Stephanie baked cookies with her. She loved that Stephanie read her stories. She loved that Stephanie made her dad smile in ways he hadn't smiled since Jennifer died. But more importantly, Marcus realized something profound during that year. His attraction to Stephanie had nothing to do with her body fitting society's standards. It had everything to do with who she was as a person. And he realized something else. Society's narrow standards of beauty and desirability were not only harmful to women like Stephanie, but they were limiting to men like him. By accepting society's judgment about who was worth dating, he would have missed out on one of the most meaningful relationships of his life. After a year of dating, Marcus asked Stephanie to marry him. He proposed at the beach, with Emma there as a witness. Stephanie said yes, crying happy tears. The engagement announcement surprised some people, those who'd thought Marcus was settling. But it also inspired people. Friends of Marcus's who'd also been taught to dismiss plus-sized women started questioning their own biases. Women who'd been made to feel invisible by the dating world started seeing Stephanie's story as hopeful. But the real turning point came when Stephanie and Marcus decided to start a non-profit organization together. They called it WasThey, Challenging Beauty Standards, Building Real Connection. The organization did several things. It provided workshops in schools about media literacy and challenging unrealistic beauty standards. It provided dating workshops for people who'd been marginalized by conventional dating culture, including plus-sized people, older people, disabled people, and others who'd been taught to believe they weren't worthy of love. Most significantly, it told stories. Marcus and Stephanie shared their story publicly. They talked about Marcus's initial biases. They talked about how that bias had almost caused them to miss each other. They talked about how real attraction develops when you see people as whole human beings, rather than judging them based on appearance. They appeared on podcasts. They gave TED Talk-style presentations. They created content about challenging societal standards of beauty and desirability. The response was overwhelming. People wrote to them saying that their story had changed how they thought about attraction. Men wrote saying they'd realized they'd been dismissing women who were actually perfect for them based on body type. Women wrote saying that watching Marcus's love for Stephanie, unapologetic, genuine, obvious, had helped them believe that they too could be truly loved, not just tolerated. Plus-sized women wrote that seeing Marcus's obvious attraction to and pride in Stephanie had given them hope that they could find genuine partners who appreciated them fully, not despite their body but inclusive of it. But perhaps most significantly, educators started using Marcus and Stephanie's story in schools to teach young people about bias, about attraction, and about the importance of not limiting themselves based on what society told them should attract them. A year after their engagement, Marcus and Stephanie got married. Their wedding was beautiful. Emma was the flower girl. Jerome and Lisa were there, and Jerome, having witnessed the genuine love between Marcus and Stephanie, had completely shifted his perspective on what it meant to settle versus what it meant to find real connection. During the reception, Jerome stood to give a toast. "I want to publicly apologize," Jerome said, "because I suggested to Marcus that he might be settling with Stephanie. And what I realize now is that I was the one who was limited in my thinking. Marcus found someone he genuinely loves, someone who's intelligent and kind and beautiful. And I almost cost him that by suggesting he could do better." He raised his glass. "To Marcus and Stephanie, for showing me that real love isn't about checking boxes on a list of physical characteristics. It's about seeing someone fully and choosing them completely." The room erupted in applause. 5 years after that blind date, Marcus and Stephanie were thriving. They'd continued their nonprofit work, now with a staff of 15 people. They'd reached over 50,000 people through their workshops and media content. They'd changed how many people thought about attraction and desirability. They'd also become parents together. Stephanie had given birth to their son, James. Emma, now 12, was a loving big sister. The family was complete and genuinely happy. But perhaps most significantly, they received letters regularly from people whose lives had been changed by their story. One man wrote, Your story made me realize I was dismissing women based on body type instead of actually seeing them as people. I started dating a plus-sized woman I'd been avoiding, and she's become my best friend and partner. Thank you for showing me that my biases were limiting me. A plus-sized woman wrote, I watched your wedding video and saw how Marcus looked at Stephanie. The way he looked at her, with such obvious attraction and love and pride, changed something in me. I stopped accepting scraps of attention from men. I started demanding to be truly appreciated. And I found someone who loves me fully. Thank you, a young man wrote. I'm in school, and I was taught by society to only be attracted to thin women. Your story made me question that. Now I'm attracted to all kinds of beautiful people. I have a much wider, fuller experience of attraction and beauty. A teenager wrote, I'm plus-sized and I was feeling hopeless about ever finding love. Your story showed me that love isn't about fitting into society's narrow boxes. It's about being seen and valued completely. That gave me hope. Letters came in regularly, each one showing how one couple's decision to look past societal conditioning and genuinely connect had rippled out to affect thousands of people. But more importantly, Marcus and Stephanie had changed how they themselves thought about the world. Marcus had done the work of examining his biases, not just about Stephanie's body, but about all the ways he'd been taught to judge and categorize people. He'd become an advocate for challenging those biases. Stephanie had learned that her worth was never dependent on whether society found her conventionally attractive. She'd learned that real love meant being chosen completely and authentically. Together, they'd created something beautiful, a testament to the fact that attraction and love aren't determined by narrow physical standards. They're determined by seeing someone fully, by valuing their intelligence and kindness and humor, and all the things that make them who they are. The real moral asterisk. This story teaches us something fundamental about bias, attraction, and real love. Marcus started with unconscious biases that society had taught him. He'd been conditioned to believe that certain body types were more attractive, more desirable, more worthy of love. These weren't beliefs he consciously held or would have explicitly defended, but they were embedded in how he thought about attraction. Stephanie had been conditioned to believe the opposite, that her body made her less desirable, less worthy, less likely to be truly loved. What happened when they met and actually talked to each other was remarkable. The biases started to dissolve. Marcus began to see Stephanie as a whole person, not as a body that did or didn't fit his preconceived notions of attractiveness. Stephanie began to experience genuine attraction from someone who valued her completely. But the most important thing that happened was that they both realized society's standards of beauty and desirability are not neutral observations about human worth. They're constructed, taught, reinforced through media and culture and family messages. And they're often designed to benefit certain groups while harming others. When Marcus and Stephanie challenged those standards, for themselves, for each other, and then publicly for their communities, they opened up possibilities for thousands of people to do the same. The universal truth asterisk. We all have biases about attraction that we've absorbed from society. We all have ideas about what we should be attracted to. And these ideas often limit us. The story of Marcus and Stephanie shows us what happens when we examine those biases. When we question the messages we've received. When we're willing to see people, especially people who've been marginalized by narrow beauty standards, as whole human beings worthy of attraction and love. It shows us that real attraction doesn't develop from checklists of physical characteristics. It develops from seeing someone fully, from understanding their intelligence and their values and their humor and their kindness. It develops from genuine connection. For everyone watching this story asterisk, ask yourself, what biases about attraction have I absorbed from society? Where am I limiting myself or others based on narrow standards of beauty or desirability? Where could I be missing genuine connection because I'm filtering through society's judgment instead of my own authentic response? Because the truth is, there's probably someone in your life, or someone you haven't met yet, who could be genuinely perfect for you, but who you're dismissing based on biases you didn't even know you had. Marcus and Stephanie's story shows us that real love isn't about fitting into predetermined boxes. It's about seeing someone fully and choosing them completely. That kind of love, authentic, unfiltered by bias, based on genuine appreciation of the whole person, is available to all of us. But only if we're brave enough to challenge the biases that limit our vision and open enough to see people as they really are, not as society tells us they should be. Did this story move you? Did it show you how challenging our biases about attraction and beauty can open up possibilities for real love? Smash that like button right now and hit subscribe because stories like this prove that real connection transcends narrow beauty standards and that the most fulfilling relationships come from genuine appreciation of the whole person. From a blind date many thought wouldn't work to a non-profit changing thousands of lives. This is what happens when we see past society's judgments and see people for who they really are. You absolutely don't want to miss the next story about breaking free from limited thinking and discovering authentic love. Subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and let's keep celebrating the people who challenge bias and build real connection. Flexed biceps red heart, sparkles asterisk asterisk.